Hello, everybody, and welcome to this marketing masterclass. Today is all about marketing from the heart with Mark Silver. So, if you've just joined us for the first time, then a warm welcome to you. If you're one of our regulars, then hello and welcome back. My name is Simon Batchelor. I'm a marketing mentor and one of the co founders of Better, Bolder, Braver. And today I'm joined by Francis. Would you like to say hello, Francis?
Hello, Francis. No, I'm joking. Sorry. We've literally had like the minimal amount of time with Mark and already are feeling, I'm certainly feeling quite joyous. I'm inspired to ask you all to post in the chat how you're feeling right now, which would be a nice way to welcome Mark, and also allow us to see how everyone is arriving. My name is Frances Chlasji. I am the other co founder of the Better, Bolder, Braver community for coaches. And as many of you know, who are here live and who are going to be listening in on repeat. We have guests on the show who are either coaches, generously sharing how it's all making them feel to show up in the world and share their wares in a generous way. Or we have someone from what we've come to understand and call our marketing family. And Mark is very much in our marketing family. He's an extended second cousin, 3 times removed, over in the States, hence the time of day, and was introduced to us by Anya Pierce, who is a good friend of Simon and mine from the Happy Startup School, which is the other community that we're in. And without any further ado, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Mark. We'd love to know who you are, where you are, what you've built, and why you're still here.
Thank you. Why I'm still here? That is a great question. No idea, really. So I'm Mark Silver. My family and I live outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in the east central United States, central Pennsylvania, and yeah, I've been doing the work that I do. My company is called Heart of Business for 22 years now, and had the privilege and honor to work with thousands and thousands of business owners over that time. I grew up in business. My parents ran a retail store that my grandfather had started. Cute story. He was a pharmacist who sold alcohol by prescription during Prohibition here in the United States when alcohol was illegal, and then opened a wine store when Prohibition was over. If that says anything about my family, I don't know. And now I'm a Muslim Sufi and I don't drink at all. So there you go. I am, you know, we say that every act of business can be an act of love. And I take the Sufi teachings that I've received from my teachers and integrate them into business teachings, or maybe vice versa. And we're really here to help people who are trying to make the world a better place in the face of the devastations of late stage capitalism, who just want to bring more joy and spirit and be successful with their businesses without breaking their integrity, without breaking their heart, without betraying the world that we're all trying to presence.
Thank you. Why? What happened that made? What was that moment of change for you that made you suddenly sort of want to dedicate yourself to helping people in this manner? Can you recall a moment particularly? Does something come to mind?
Um, you know, I my life, I don't, it's funny the way that I see my life is I don't see a lot of pivot moments. It seems that things seem to grow kind of organically. Like I said, I grew up in business and I've kind of been around small business and I came out of a moment. I came out of a different career. I had been a paramedic in the San Francisco Bay Area for some years, and I was burnt out. And in burning out, I started to help friends of mine who were self-employed with I don't know, some design. I'd always messed around with computers and done stuff on computer. This was trifold brochures. This was the 90s, after all, 1990s, and I turned out to know more than I thought I knew, and to help people. And so I had absorbed, I'd run a nonprofit magazine also prior, and so there'd just been all of these different pieces that came together organically, and activism and business and a little bit of design. I was a world's worst designer. Thank God that is in my past. Don't ask me to design anything, but it's we hire people for that now, thank goodness. But it kind of came together organically because I saw people, friends of mine at first, and then beyond that, who were doing really wonderful work, like organic gardeners and all kinds of holistic practitioners and people who are really trying to make change in the world. And how do you make a living? Like, how do you make a living doing that? How do you get clients without feeling gross? How do you price yourself without feeling like you're betraying people? And um, and that began the long journey with that. And yeah, I mean, lots of stories to tell along the way, but that's what it came out of. And no, I can't think of one particular moment. It felt like a number of dominoes that fell over a period of time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of our audience who feel that they need to get very clear very quickly as to why they're here and what they're doing and how to talk to people about it. And it's so easy to say all you need to do is get really clear on your needs, and then all you need to do is work out what the headlines are. And we have
Yeah,
this
no,
conversation a lot, and I think people would appreciate hearing that sometimes it is not like seminal pivotal moments, or like it just is a slow burning getting clear on what your reason is for being here and who you want to serve, and why it keeps you alive every day.
I think it's far more common, at least in my experience, witnessing our clients, that it takes time. It takes time. It takes time to build a business. It takes time to get clarity. It's iterative. You get some clarity, enough to like take a step or two, and then you get more clarity, and then you get more clarity, and then you get more clarity. It's never the bolt of lightning. I keep telling people to, like, don't sequester yourself for months trying to get it perfect. It's like it comes out in the doingness of it. Um, and one of the things that I like to also relieve people of the pressure, as a Sufi, as a spiritual person, like, my reason for being here is not my business. My reason for being in the world is to carry the love in my heart. And I like people to pick a business that they're going to enjoy, that interests them. Maybe it'll change in 5 or 10 years. Mine hasn't. My personality is more like the dog with a bone kind of personality, but some people shift and change over time, with those kinds of things. And you don't have to have the burden of the calling, like, this is my divine calling, to be the business. It's like, if you're enjoying your business and it interests you and you're helping people, then that's giving you a venue to carry what I would consider the true purpose, which is to carry the qualities of your heart in the world, to help bring the love into the world, and in a way that um, helps us remember unity, helps us remember that we're not separate from one another, helps us remember that we're just here to care for one another and lift each other up.
That's lovely. Thank you. I really feel into that. I was talking earlier with one of our community members, just in the cold light of day, how productive it is to be operating from a place that is sort of feeling in any way desperate or needy. And we talk about the hero and the guide, and wanting always to be more of a guide than the hero of the story. And when you create space for yourself where the project, the offering, is not incidental, but isn't something that you are like waking up in the night worrying about. It's something that is a parallel existence, as you're describing, to just living in your body and leading with your heart. unsurprisingly, people are more attracted to working with you. And so it's just that, as I say, cold light of day, it makes business sense not to be operating from a place of complete focus and desperation on your business.
It doesn't. It's not very fun, and it's not very effective. And yeah, I would agree. And the one thing that I will say about neediness, because it's such a core part of the teachings here at Heart of Business, is that neediness is actually a really healthy thing. It just often gets directed in the wrong direction. Um, what I understand spiritually is that we're vessels, and the nature of a vessel of a glass, the inherent nature of it is the emptiness, right? And so it it can be filled with things. We can be filled with love, we can express love, we can carry love, but we can't create it in ourselves. It has to come, it has to rise up or rise or drop in or come from somewhere. And that neediness is how we access abundance. That neediness is how we access um, what it is that we need most. The Sufis say the aim is not to drink to quench your thirst. The aim is to develop the perfect thirst so that you never stop drinking. And I want our clients to be rain barrels that are overfilling, overspilling on people around them, and feeding people around them, rather than trying to, trying to claw the dregs of what's at the bottom to try to give to people. And so it's a big thing, but our culture doesn't really like neediness, but it's so essential to who we are as humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a hunch this might happen as well. Having devoured some of your content, I'm now just sitting and thinking about what you're actually saying, and that doesn't make for great radio. So, um, would you talk to us a bit so that other people listening in know about how you work on a practical level, like your community, your people, your services, so that people understand how you are delivering this to people and how
Right.
you're working with people?
Yes. So I do carry a very small number of one-on-one clients and small group coaching. The heart of our offer is what we call our learning community. And it took me years to get to the point where we could really launch it and run it, because it took me years to develop the materials, the home study materials, the curriculum, all of these pieces. But we have a learning community that's priced at pay from the heart, meaning people, we say what it is would be sustainable for us, but we trust people to choose what works for them. And so people are all over the map in terms of what they're paying, because people need to be able to be in it long enough to develop a business, which takes 2, 3, 4 years. And so that learning community has learning modules that are both practical and spiritual. We do virtual retreats every other month. We have a whole library of remembrances, which are 12 to 15-minute guided audios on meditations, if you will, on different topics. Um, and then we have a live calls, compassionate accountability call. We have a group coaching call. We have a deep heart check-in call, co-working call. And so it's meant to create this envelope buffet that allows people to really take a deep dive and immerse themselves. Or, as happens in life, sometimes people have a different priority and they can't use the community to the fullest extent. And so, they're just maybe touching it. It's enabling them to keep a touchstone for a month or 2 months. Maybe they're dealing with illness. Maybe their elderly parents need something. Maybe, an adult child is getting married and they're off in joyland for a month or two. And so but they don't want to abandon their business and come back to something that's been ignored. And so uh, that's been one of the ideas behind having that kind of a membership container, rather than because for years I taught these 6-month, 1-year courses that can be really beneficial and powerful, because lots of people do it. We did it, and I could kept seeing people emerge from that having only implemented a percentage, sometimes a small percentage of the material. And people just need more time. They need more time, and they need more iteration, and they need the live support, but they need to also go at their own pace. So that's the heart of what we do.
Love that. In fact, somebody's dialed in today who I was only speaking to, but minutes, I think. Well, it was more like half an hour earlier than this call, about that thing of meeting people where they are. The course that we have, hey Mark, another Mark. So we both Mark and we have a thing which, you know, we go from, is this going to be of greatest value for people to go on a journey together on with, you know, is it most important for us though to meet people where they are and have them be able to start it when they want? And we're very aware of everybody's different learning journeys, and it's so tempting when, you know, I think coaches have a light bulb moment and they realize who they're meant to be working, who they really are passionate to work with, and they're very clear on what it is that they can deliver, that they should run a program and that it should have 10, 12 people on it, has to start by this day, you know, and everyone is going to get the best out of it if they go on it together. But there is also something to be said for providing something that means that everybody can just immerse themselves in it as they wish, when they wish, and at the speed they wish.
Right. I mean, thank goodness there's all these different options and people do things in all these different ways, because, you know, the tapestry of humanity is so beautiful, and so many different ways to do things. And yeah, I mean, I teach courses also. And so, yeah, it's really important to be able to meet this. And it's really important. I mean, one of the dangers, I think, in business development is that you look at somebody who's being successful and then naturally you copy them, right? Because that's one of the main ways we learn as human beings. But the challenge with that is that whatever you're copying, one, you don't often know what's going on behind the scenes. And the second thing is that what you're copying may not be suitable for your personality and your strengths and your gifts. And so I just like people to stay awake to what really works for them. It's a theme we've been talking about a lot with our clients, and you know, it's like designing the business for your strengths, not on a cookie cutter, you know.
Again, this is something that I can rant about all day long, but you know, I think the problem for our community of coaches is there's a lot of I'm going to respect that because you're in the States, probably effing and blinding is not going to be something that maybe some of your listeners are going to be that keen on, so I'll try and rein it in. But you know, we call
I didn't understand that at all.
probably for the
What
best.
did you say?
I'm basically not going to swear, just in
Oh,
case.
I don't care. I don't care.
When you're sharing this with your community, I don't want to offend anyone.
No, come on. We're all adults here. And I'll tell you, even more than the adults in my community, I'm a father of teenagers. And so
you're used to it.
So please, yeah.
I'm thinking of those nice people on your side of the pond who have children getting married, so they must be of a certain generation, and I don't want to offend, but yeah, okay, fine. Give me license. So yeah, just this whole toxic marketing bullshit stuff, and all these coaches out there. As I was saying to Mark earlier, whose LinkedIn banner is them sitting in a jacuzzi with a girl in a bikini saying, you know, it's all worked out great for me. Like, I've sold this many courses, I've got to this place, whatever. And as Mark and I were discussing, we don't know what's going on. You know, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and you know, we're not saying that those people should be ashamed of themselves, but there's a huge context of, you know, how much time did it take, and what went wrong along the way, and you know, have they employed some of the you know, sort of toxic marketing tactics that some of us in our family may not necessarily use quite as readily, or do they even know that they're doing it? You know, there's so much going on that we don't, and as you say, you know, we don't know what their limits and boundaries and capacities are, and just to constantly try and live up to what someone else looks like they're doing it's always going to fail us, basically.
It's always going to fail us. And I'm also like, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've known some of the big players, and I've known what goes on behind closed doors. I've been privy to things, and I'll tell you, it rarely looks like what you think it looks like. You have somebody who has a big six-figure launch or whatever they're talking about, and um, one, is that even true? And two, like, how much of it are they giving away? Like, are they keeping any of it, or is it all
Mm.
going to affiliate sales? How much high pressure marketing? People who have these high priced events selling out, and you find out the truth that they actually gave away most of the seats and only sold a handful. It's like there's all kinds of tricks. If something looks too good to be true, be suspicious, because business is built on businesses are built on really average, mediocre results day in and day out. Like that's what it is. It's like you grow a garden and you plant some, I mean, we are privileged to live on land, and we like gardening and planting things. Like I planted I had this project where I planted 100 hazelnut trees. 70 of them survived. That's life. That's
Mm.
how it
Mm.
works. That's how it works. And so these huge successes, I just want people to have so much compassion for themselves and not judge themselves by how people are portraying themselves in public, which is
Mm.
very rarely the full story.
Hmm.
Yeah,
We,
there's that
sorry.
other quote that is kind of, it takes years of work to be an overnight success,
That's exactly
or
correct.
something
Yeah.
similar to that along those lines. And it is that thing, isn't it? Of it can take, we had um, the lady on from the Ethical Move, whose name escapes me as I tried to say it out loud, which happens to me all the time,
Alice.
and and she was saying about how sometimes you see people who are like, oh, I sent one email and sold 100 places on my course, and you think, well, yeah, you may have done that, but you might have had a list of 1,000 clients that you've been working with for 10 years in your corporate career. And you said to them, hey, do you want to come and do this thing? And because you're a client, as you said, I'll give you a space for free. And there's
Right.
all this hidden messaging, all this hidden stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you never see. But if you're trying to sell the program, the secret formula of how to send one email and fill out a course,
Well,
sort of thing.
exactly. I mean, I can say
Yeah,
the same
it's
thing. I did a session with someone, and they're like, "Oh my goodness!" And then they ended up doubling the revenue from one session. But
yeah,
I have to be able to reveal that I actually had worked with them for a year, and they had
yeah.
put all these pieces in place, and then they had
Mm,
taken a break, and then we did a one-off session that tweaked
yeah.
something. I mean, come on. Let's,
Mm,
it's just like
yeah.
it's so I mean, this is capitalism. I mean, that's capitalism is built on deceit and uh, colonialization and white supremacy and all this crap that
Mm,
has laid waste to our cultures and our integrity and our environments and our communities. And business has existed, commerce has existed in many, many different forms far longer than capitalism has been around. And we need to plant the flag, make what a colonial image. Anyway, it's like we need to like embrace the truth of our hearts and what it means to really care for each other while we're doing the work that's important for us.
This reminds me of a number of conversations I've had about sort of where you can do the most, whether it's from within or outside. And I was talking to another friend of ours in the marketing family who's a brand expert. And we were talking about the kind of, it being a lot more nuanced than sort of bad and good and ethical and not ethical. And when you get into the world of corporate social responsibility, it can become very difficult to navigate as a fundraiser, because you're asking yourself questions about whether or not the funder is going to let you get on with the project, or are they going to want to be really involved, and what's going to be most useful actually if you're trying to do good in the world. And it's very nuanced and quite tricky. So to step away from the politics, because otherwise those of us who get quite passionate can sort of end up crying for an hour with each other and not getting a huge amount done. Is part of your work getting people to try not to think too big a picture about things, is what I get, which is not necessarily, I'm playing devil's advocate, because I tend to find it very difficult to not think about sort of being an agent of change in a bigger social impact narrative. But sometimes I guess it is compassionate towards oneself just to be able to not, just to kind of rein that in a bit sometimes. Otherwise it can feel overwhelming, can't it?
Well, it can feel overwhelming. And I think that one of the things that we don't take enough time for is grief. Like Western culture doesn't really make much space for grief. And acting and trying to move forward. There's been so many times I've worked with clients, and when we've really made space and done the spiritual work and the emotional work, and maybe we have an hour in our session, we spend 45 minutes working with stuff and then all the practical stuff just falls into place. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, I find that not always, but sometimes it works like that. And I really appreciate what you're saying, because one of the I liked what you said before about, like, we're not the heroes. We're not the heroes. Um, like, again, that's part of what's been damaging us, is thinking that one of us needs to save the world. Like the one lone hero against the darkness. It's like, for one, darkness can be very nourishing, as the seedlings that are starting in the other room under the soil are. But the other piece of this is that we can only get there together. We can only get there together. And so each of our roles is relatively small. I've got sure, we reach thousands of people, but it's a tiny business. We have a very small handful of people on the team. I can only work with a few hundred people a year. If I I'm writing a book and we publish it. If I sell 10,000, if I sell 50,000 copies, you know what? I can probably, like, look out across this landscape and there's 50,000 people within 10 square miles. Like, it's not that much. Each of us needs to show up. And if we can be humble and sincere and scale back what we're trying to do and see ourselves as part of the whole, oh my God, then yeah, of course, it feels so much more doable. If any of us has to save the world, like, it should feel overwhelming, because that's not what we're being asked to do.
I love that. We've got so many people who'll be listening who've pivoted from doing something else and have decided to become coaches. And we talk about the work balance, because from a practical point of view, in order to do something from the heart and with joy and without feeling panicked, one often needs to be doing other things, and that's absolutely fine, and not talked about enough. But nevertheless, these are people who've pivoted from doing something and want to help others, and sort of really want to make change in the world and see change happening. And so it can start feeling frustrating, especially when you're not confident about putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Selling your services, sharing your gift, how that feels at the end of the day, when all you wanted to do was help someone, and here you are again, and went down some marketing rabbit hole and got lost on Instagram and hate yourself.
That happens. Hopefully we can have some healthy regret and not hate ourselves, but it's like, it's so true. I mean, it's so true. It's messy. Life is messy in terms of how we walk with all of this. And yeah.
Do you feel like you're changing things up daily? I mean, do you follow your heart on a daily basis, would you say?
Well, I try. I mean, I really try. It's not, it's a moment by moment thing. Life is very full, And there's lots of times where I'm doing things like I think we have to decide what we mean by follow your heart. I think that sometimes we can have a very idealistic image or feeling of what following the heart means. And I find it useful to um, think about like what's in front of me, what's being asked of me, where am I supposed to be now? Because I've been talking with clients about this a lot recently, how guidance, our sense of guidance or intuition is not based on externals. Sometimes we have a challenge and something that's really hard in front of us to do. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. Other times, a challenge can be a sign that, oh, this is not something I should be touching. Sometimes the easy path means, oh yeah, follow your heart. It's easy. And sometimes the easy path is the wrong path. Sometimes it's doing things in an unethical or just not where you're supposed to go. And we have to listen to something. I have to listen to something much deeper inside me than just whether something's easy or hard or whether I'm happy with it or not. There's a saying in Sufism: beware of loving what is not good for you and beware of hating what is good for you. And it speaks to this deeper need for this need for deeper discernment and listening. Sometimes I can only tell until after I've tried doing something, and then I get a sense of it. Other times it's crystal clear and I'm like float from one thing to the next.
Love it.
Yeah.
We
I,
talk
that's a
about.
that's a that's a that was a I don't know how clear an answer that
No,
was
that's
for
good. That's good.
the
That's good.
question.
Because then we get into the transparency thing, and I think everyone's all hot on the old authenticity, vulnerability, transparency, and it's like, what does any of that stuff actually mean? I mean, Simon and I are in the business of sharing what's happening for us. We also talk about marketing as being um, another effing self growth tool, a mirror up to yourself. The way in which you can sort of be alive to what's going on for you when you want to put something out there to the world is a way for us to then further understand ourselves, because only by talking out aloud and putting something out there can we get clearer. As you say, sometimes you need to do something and then see how you felt about it. And we like to talk out loud about what's happening, even if it doesn't feel great, or it didn't feel great, or we thought it was going to be great and then it wasn't so great. And by doing that, hopefully we're cutting through some of the sort of shiny stuff that we talked about earlier, when people are just presenting the end product and not showing the workings. So that's one of the reasons why we want to do it. But also because we're not quite sure where it's going to go, and in a way,
Right.
if we can just talk about it, we're kind of removing the responsibility of having to eventually get somewhere that is what we said we were going to be doing or something. So I think what you're talking to is the process again. It's in the process of, you can't just get clear. You can't just know what your needs are. You have to somehow be doing some stuff in order. You can't just sit there and meditate on it. Or you
Although
could, but
sometimes that's the answer, and sometimes what you're saying, it's like there's no formula. The formula is being awake and discerning and listening. Like that's the formula, and I think it's very frustrating because life has evolved to, not, I shouldn't say life has evolved. We've made living very difficult, very complicated. Like I look at the, if I could tilt the camera, I don't want to mess up this, but I've got papers on my floor because I had to go through the stack of all the stuff that comes into the house and sort it, and that's one of the ways I sort it. And I'm grateful that that you can't see down there, but it's a
let's have
mess.
a
It's a
look.
freaking mess. And it's like the amount of effort it takes just to run a household in terms of bills and like just sorting all of this stuff. It's like and parenting and all of these things, and it's a lot. And so we want um, formulas because we're giving attention to all these different things. And so so I have so much compassion for the desire for those kinds of answers, because I want them too sometimes. But what's actually easier is just being awake and listening. And once we lose the sense of everything being an emergency, and once we let that go, and we can allow ourselves the moments to listen when we're not sure, I feel like that's when the path becomes clearer, even if the clarity is a lack of clarity. Like, I'm not sure, so I'm going to try this. Or, oh, I am clear. Or, I think I just need to freaking take a nap, and I don't have an appointment for 90 minutes, so I'm going to go lie down instead of trying to get through 3 more things on my to-do list. There's this. We just need so much more spaciousness and compassion and kindness with ourselves than I think any of us really truly acknowledge most of the time.
Mm. Also, I love this. It made me laugh. You said like something about I'm looking forward to listening to it again, because I think your phrasing was great, but it's not an emergency. Like it just feels like everything sometimes is like the emergency of now. It needs
I
resolving
know.
immediately.
I know. I did have the benefit of being a paramedic and then a volunteer firefighter later, and I've been on thousands of emergency calls, and 90 to 95% of them, it wouldn't have mattered if we'd gotten there a year, not a year later, but it's like there weren't emergencies, like they weren't emergencies. And of course, our healthcare system here in the US is trash, and so it may be different in the UK, but it's like the it's like so many things are not emergencies, and they need a different kind of care than rushing around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what's the risk of rushing around actually? Yeah, doesn't help. Let's talk about conversations. One of your areas of interest is kind of how to navigate some quite difficult things like sales conversations, for example, if we just call them that for the sake of getting the subject going. I think a lot of the things that people feel uncomfortable about are then outside of their own heads and into the world of having to actually talk to other people about it. What advice can you give? What thoughts do you have about things like sales conversations?
Yeah. So it's a big topic. I think one of the things that I want to start out with, and again, this goes back exactly to what we've been talking about, which is that it's very important not to see sales conversations in a vacuum. I think that a lot of where the grossness comes from is thinking that we should be able to meet a stranger and have some kind of a compelling conversation and convince them to purchase rapid fire like that. I see sales conversations as fitting into a larger picture of what I call the 3 journeys of marketing, that a conversation with someone who is needing help. They're needing help, and they've taken the time, and sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it happens in a moment. More often it happens um, over time, and then you have a conversation about discerning what it is that they need and whether you can help them. And this is and there's pieces and details to that in terms of staying focused and being effective without being manipulative. But there's this idea that, we need to be, let's see, let me think about what are the pieces I want to, because I could dive into the whole 8-week course around teaching sacred selling, but the pieces that I want folks to understand in this moment that are kind of rising up for me is to understand that that marketing and sales is a little bit of a numbers game in a compassionate way, meaning that it's a lot easier to be unattached to whether somebody says yes or no if you've taken the effort to reach out to lots of people. And then each person can have their timing with it. It's going to be naturally hard, spiritually hard, emotionally hard. If you've only talked to one person in the last month and they say no, like, of course you're going to be attached to that. Like who in their right mind is not going to, like, you'd have to be a saint, to be able to be unattached to that. So it's like, to understand that it's in this process of gathering an audience and speaking to people and connecting with people. And it's one of the reasons that it takes a while for a business to really reach momentum. Like, no matter how quickly you put the pieces in place, it just takes time to gather enough people that you have that flow. There are ways to speed it up that aren't terrible, but it's like, I just, again, I want people to have compassion for themselves, that it takes time to practice this. The other piece that I want to say, out of the many pieces I'm kind of reaching for, but this one kind of floated to the top, is that the other side of being unattached is desire, right? Needing someone to buy because you need to buy groceries, of course, is going to feel not so good to the other person. However, what I see people do is then try to be so unattached that the other person isn't feeling a real sense of invitation. Like, I want people, like, as the business owner, part of our job is to be the first to be vulnerable, the first to extend our heart, the first to say, I think I can help you and I would love to work with you. I think we'd have a lot of fun together. And I think that I can really help you. And I think it's your choice. I don't want you to do it if it doesn't feel right. And I just want you to know that I would look forward to it if you wanted to work with me. And that sense of desire, I've had people, like, it's surprising to me. Like, people say, do you want clients? I'm like, do you, I'm in business. Like, it's like, I don't, like people
Yeah.
feel shy.
Yeah.
People feel shy, people feel vulnerable. And a lot of people um, haven't always felt invited or wanted or welcomed. And inviting people in, welcoming them in, I think is a key part of creating the safety. Selling, marketing, the key issue here, the real job of all of that is not attraction. The real job of all of that is safety, is to create safety for people.
I mean, all this stuff is like landing really beautifully with me because I'm on this mission always for people to feel more proud and confident about showing up and like offering their wares in a generous way as a gift, and rather than sort of desperately standing on a soapbox, as I say, vomiting their shit all over the place in a really uncontained, unboundaried, unaware way, unself-aware way. It's that calmness that you're exuding yourself in talking about, how much it makes you feel great. Is that, we talk about testimonials and how when someone writes something amazing about what you do to you, it's a gift to say to them, as I often do, can I share this? It means so much to me that you've said this because I see you and I care about you so much. And so the fact that it's landed with you in this way and you've taken the time to work through our program, you've come to the other end and you're saying, not, oh my god, I finished it amazing, but I can't wait to kind of go through all the content again because I know that I'm going to get so much more out of it the second time. And I really want other people to hear what I've been through. Like, there's so many levels of generosity there. And then
There
for
are
me
so
to
many.
say, I really want to say I really love you and thank you out loud. Is that okay? And like, so when we're talking about testimonies, we're not talking about it in the like, what you want is a quote on your website. It's like, what you want is to be in a position where somebody is making you feel the way that you haven't felt before, and then you want to give back to them. That's what we're talking about, I think, isn't it?
SubhanAllah, that's exactly true. Yeah, I love that. I love how you're describing that. And I say something similar to that, just in the appreciation, and also just like, would it be okay if I share this with folks, because other people are going to feel really nervous. They're not going to feel safe. And maybe sharing your experience would help them feel safe to at least try what it is that we're
Mm.
offering. And um, it's really about the work. I think one of the things that we teach in business is that your business has its own heart. It has its own beingness that's separate from you. And marketing is about getting the work and getting the business out to people who really need the help or want the help. And and it's not about you. It's not about me. Like, you're not promoting yourself.
Mm.
You're extending a hand and inviting people who need help to get the help that they need. And because we're all adults, and because we know that it's a business, like this is the other thing, I'll bring this up in selling, is that it's not a transaction that's happening. And this is a very spiritual way of seeing things, but it's not a transaction. What's happening is that there are, like, I think many of us have had the experience of, when working with clients or doing our work, like, that something's flowing through us, that we're just being, used as a channel to give to people. However, we're also human, and we have needs also. We are not above our clients. It's a relationship of equals, It's like we're facing another equal, another human being. And so
Mhm.
we may be the doorway to the divine for them in this particular way, and that's my language. And and then the client is the doorway to the divine for you, for me, for receiving the sustenance and the provision that's being given. It's like there's a giving in both directions, and there's an equality there. But it's not, it's like, this all came up because a client years and years ago had asked me, like, I feel like the work isn't mine. I feel like it comes through me. Like, how can I charge for it? And it took a lot of talking to my teachers and praying and being with it. And I'm like, you can't. Like, that's a great question, because you can't sell it, but you can be humble enough to receive, in the same way that you're asking your client to be humble enough to receive from you.
So I'm going to push you on this because I feel like I can, and I think it's going to be really useful for people. And there's going to be some sound bites. I can feel some mic drops. Will you talk us through your relationship with pricing, and sort of how you can maybe just help people in 11 minutes to reframe some of the things that come up so often, that are not really talked about enough, that are a bit dirty, that feel icky, around
Yeah.
actually pricing and putting a price on something, and like, where do you start, and what's your approach, what's your energy around that?
Yeah. So it's so there's a couple of there's a this is such a beautiful question. It's a big deal. And I think, again, it's one of the things I say over and over again. Like, if you have an issue with some aspect of business or business in general, you are absolutely justified in having an issue. I do not want to have people get over their issues, because your heart is telling you something true. And the way that money and pricing has been done to us has been terrible, And I will use our 11 minutes wisely, not go into a bunch of examples, but of it done badly. I think we can all pull some up. But for me, there's a few different things. One is that, at heart, it's about the heart, and it's about the somatics of it. Like, there's a resonant pricing exercise that we have our clients do, which is to say, okay, you've got this offer, and you figure out the pricing last. You don't figure out the pricing first. You figure out the offer. What is it that you want to give? What is it that they need? What is it that's going to really help them? What's involved with that? And you see the breadth and the scope of what is really needed that you want to give. And then you pick a price that's so low that it feels terrible in your body. And you pick a price that's so high that it freaks you out, and there's no way you would ever charge it. And then you kind of go through between those two prices and just kind of feel how your body reacts to it. and how your heart reacts to it and what happens. And most people kind of get a sense of, oh, it's closed, 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 starts to open, really opens, closes again. Oh, opens, but that's probably, and you get all this information. It's not just like a dart
Mm.
in a board. It's like you get all this information. It's like, oh, here's the lowest price that feels okay. And here's a price that feels like, wow, but I can't reach it yet. It feels like it's going to be okay, but it's for much later. And so there's and so this is a piece of the puzzle that is that kind of somatic piece. And I don't worry about like, is it going to be profitable? Is it good? Because if even if the price is needed to be higher, if you can't charge it, what's the point? If you start charging the price that actually you can ask for and receive, it's going to shift something. And if it needs to go up, it will go up. Because
Mm.
the other side of this is that as people get into business and they see what's involved in actually running a business and what needs to be supported to make the business work, they begin to understand and kind of like lose the idea of thinking like an employee where they're getting paid by the hour, and realizing that, oh, my time in front of a client or the that has to pay for all this other stuff so I can deliver to the client. It's not just the hour that I'm there. It's
Mm.
like, or whatever the offer is. It's like there's all this other stuff. And when people get a scope of like, oh, I need to pay my bookkeeper, my accountants. Oh, I need to pay for this kind of stuff so that I can even take payments. Oh, I need to make sure I can upgrade my computer every few years, or I need to, whatever it is. Like I need to be able to afford to like have enough downtime so that I can be really resourced when I show up for clients. And when they start to get a scope of what that is, then somatically, energetically, spiritually, the price that makes sense in their being starts to go higher. And what we have found is that there are real limits to this, meaning that it's not just sky's the limit and you just jack the
Mm.
price up to whatever. Like people reach limits and go, you know what? My business needs to make more money, but I feel really clear that I can't go higher than this price. And then that triggers, hopefully, it's something we educate our clients on. Oh, it's time to look at the business model. And by business model, I mean, what are the collection of offers that are going to support you to get to the financial needs you know the financial goals and needs that you have. My throat's getting, it's Ramadan, I'm fasting, my throat's getting dry, pardon me. But anyway, it's like, what's the what are the different offers that are going to come together to both support the business financially, that are going to allow you to charge an ethical price that doesn't feel too high or too low, that's going to get all of these different needs met. And so I think a lot of people look at the price in a vacuum, the same way we're talking about the sacred selling, selling conversation in a vacuum. You have to, when we see things as part of the whole and we see that the role that they play holistically, it starts to make a lot more sense. And the
Mm.
decisions start to become maybe a little bit more complex sometimes, but they make a lot more sense and they become easier because we see the factors that are involved with them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's a fascinating way to go through pricing, because I think a lot of pricing is just based on arbitrary percentages or preconceptions, or looping right back to the beginning of our conversation, comparison. Well, they're charging this, so I need to charge that. And as you say, when you have that sales conversation, let's say you've landed on, $1,197 as and then you don't
Mm.
make the sale and you feel bad about it. And you're like, well, I felt bad saying it. I felt embarrassed saying the price out loud. And, the client knows you don't really want the money, and you feel bad about the price and they can tell. And it's just, you have that awkward, whereas if it feels good, then that adds to the confidence, doesn't it? It adds to
It
that.
totally does.
Yeah, it's a genuine offer of saying, I really believe that this is a fair price for this. This feels right to me, and I can see the value in it for you. And then it's an exchange, isn't it? It's not a sort of unnecessary markup or inflation of
Right.
price.
Right. And, especially for people in earlier stages of business where there's not a lot of flow through in their business yet. There's not a lot of, you like, don't try to charge the highest price you can. Like, it's going to, like, the energy flow and the connection and the feeling good and working with people is so much more important. All of this, like, charge what you're worth crap, um, is really, it's so much better to charge what you can accept,
Mm,
and get the flow in. Like, I'd rather see people quote unquote undercharging and having a bunch of clients come through and then feel for themselves energetically and just workload wise, like, oh, I need to be charging more, and then upping their price and
mm,
then upping their price, but from a place of standing on their feet rather than somebody else saying, oh, you should charge more because you're worth more. And it's like, worth, like, if we're talking, like, worth has no place in this conversation because my life is not worth any amount of money. It's like, you can't pay me enough
mm,
to, like, give an hour of my life away. If I'm on my deathbed and I'm going to give an hour of my life away and bring my death that much closer, like, you cannot pay me for that. But if we're talking about doing the work that is placed in front of me to do and being humble and sincere enough to receive the provision, the sustenance that someone else has to give to me, that feels beautiful. That feels beautiful.
mm,
I think this is one of the more moving marketing masterclasses. I mean, they've all been lovely, but there's something of having you here with us, Mark, that feels very
Mm.
special. I had no idea it was Ramadan. Please forgive my ignorance.
You
But
can't know you must know every religion and all of their holidays.
I think I probably, all I would say on that is I don't know half of what's going on, and that is to your point about having two children, running a house, running a business, like sometimes and stuff, like
Right.
just falls. I knew it was, but I hadn't computed that was going to affect you, and so it's all the more wonderful to have you with us.
mm,
So energized and energizing. I'd really like to have you back on. I think you've got loads of pearls of wisdom,
mm,
and I'm really pleased that the universe meant that we were introduced to
Mhm.
each other. So I hope there's been something of joy that you've got out of this as well.
Well, I've been enjoying being in your all's presence and what you've created here, and I'm just really moved. There's so much that needs to be healed in the world of business. There's so much to be done, and to have more and more and more heart-centered business owners like for you to be doing this work. It's just so important. It's so critical, and I'm really grateful. And I'm grateful that we now know each other and that
Yeah,
you took
yeah.
a chance and invited me on. Thank you.
Oh, my greatest pleasure, and we knew it was going to be joyous. Thanks, Victoria. Everyone's been relatively quiet on the chat, and I think that's testament to
mm.
your to just what it is to listen
Ability to
to
put
you.
people to sleep.
No, no, I'm not one for moments of silence, as Simon can absolutely testify to. But
Exactly.
I couldn't help but wanting to just sit and digest what you were saying at various
Yeah.
points. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Mark,
It's
where
cool.
would you like people to connect with you if they feel so? Shall I share? Would you like me to share your LinkedIn
Um,
or
the
your
best
website?
thing, I think the website is the best thing
Sure.
because, like, there's all these channels out there, and really, we have a bunch of free stuff on our website. We have a free assessment. You can assess your
Yeah.
business, where it is in our model of the 4 stages of business development. And yeah, I mean, like I said, like, you all are in good hands. You're here, and so with these lovely people, and so I doubt you need what we have, but I have colleagues who I have really good relationships with who, when they complete something, they come here, our clients complete, and then go to them. So if there's something, eventually that's needed, maybe we could be of help down the road. But
We're very into
yeah,
sharing is caring, as my children
Mm.
say.
yes.
And we're in two communities and constantly like dovetailing. There's always the Venn diagrams
Mm.
going on. So I definitely would encourage people to check out Mark's blog on the website, at the very least. And there's loads of nuggets of love in there. So thank you
Yeah.
again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark, and thanks to everybody for listening and watching, and we will see you again next time. Thanks very much. Bye bye.
Peace.